everyone, gather around as I let you into my video on the horror movie of the year. Talk to me! But before we dive into that, I would just like to take a second to express my support towards the writers and actors that are currently on strike. Not only are they fighting for fair compensation and treatment, but also against some just absolutely horrific AI proposals from studios. And those AI proposals aren't just around writing, which also has a lot of horrific implications, or de-aging, or digitally reanimating dead people to reprise classic roles. We're talking about scanning background actors so that you could use them in other content forever without ever having to pay them again. Almost as scary as the movie we're going to be talking about today. And it just sucks that after one of the biggest weekends in movie history with Barbenheimer, the excitement people felt rallying behind these two beloved directors or just getting in on the memes, that studios aren't going to be willing to remotely negotiate and take all the wrong lessons about this going forward. Can't wait to see Lily Collins and Polly Pocket. Either way, going back to the strike, people deserve to be paid what they're worth, even if you hate something. The people that worked on it deserve to be fairly treated and compensated. Like, do not get me started on IATSE and all the other crew members. They work super long hours, get treated like dirt, get paid less than dirt. But yeah, also just keep in mind that something you hated might be the one thing getting someone else through the day, and that deserves to be preserved. Like, you know, we like having fun here. We like dunking on things, but if you love something that I hated, I'm at least happy that it brought you joy. These studio actions will only serve to shut out some of the best and yet to be discovered talents that we have, and the world will be a worse and darker place for it. Fair compensation is an issue across the board of all sorts of careers and industries, and something's gotta give. But Talk to Me is an Australian indie movie that got picked up by A24 out of the festival circuit for distribution, and A24 are one of the only studios that have agreed to kind of like all of the current terms from SAG-AFTRA, so they have actually been allowed to continue filming their movies so you can actually feel extra good supporting it. Beau is Afraid might have fundamentally broken something in my brain, but I still love A24. Also, if you're not usually a fan of A24 horror because it gets too into that like elevated area that they're most known for, this feels way more accessible to a wider audience, but done the right way instead of the lazy way that we get with so many other projects. Honestly, I really just think that this was the perfect pickup for them to branch into a wider category of horror. But on that note, also do not go into this expecting something like The Vivitch. Yeah, I know it's The Witch, I like calling it The Vivitch. This kind of felt more similar to something like It Follows, which is another one of my favorite horror movies. But, you know, go see Talk to Me in theaters. It is genuinely good. I've seen it at 2 different festivals. I just saw it a 3rd time before recording this video. And I'm just so excited for people to see this, and I hope to hell it's with an engaged audience. But even if it's not, the first time I saw this was on a projector inside an Airbnb because we were given like a press screener at Sundance, and it still got me. Like, I was just patiently waiting for people to come back home with all the lights on and the blinds drawn. So honestly, I recommend this movie to anyone who's into horror or like horror adjacent movies. It's a real treat and a breezy 90 minutes. And if you trust me, especially after I give you a brief little synopsis of what the general plot is, you will just go see this movie without watching the trailers, because I think the trailer kind of does a disservice to the movie as a whole, as trailers often do. So I'm going to give you a little taste of the general idea before I venture anywhere near spoilers, but then at the end I do want to talk about some of my specific thoughts and the events going into that conclusion. But Talk to Me is about a group of friends who come into possession of an embalmed hand that gives them the ability to conjure spirits. The group becomes increasingly hooked on the thrill until the door to the other side opens too far with horrific consequences. And it feels so modern in the best ways, the ways that I love. They're recording these conjurings, they're posting them online, sharing them on Snapchat. It basically becomes the new party drug, and the more they use it, the more it really feels like it is paralleling drug use, because they can't stop chasing the high the experience brings. Their appearances even start to change the more they do it, but they just can't stay away, which just feels so damn authentic as a concept. And while this is just a super effective horror at face value, so much of what happens is facilitated by a desire for connection, the inability to deal with grief, and the destructive ways people try and avoid pain, and just wanting to belong. But obviously horrible things must happen, and it's because there are rules, and when those rules are broken even minimally, disaster. And the efforts to solve one of these disasters get pretty intense. Because these sorts of spirits aren't looking to play fair. When I say disaster, I mean it. But just know that this is one of the most refreshing horror movies I've seen in a long time. Everything feels like it matters. It doesn't rely on jump scares. It's visceral without being gory for the sake of it, though there are a couple of very visually brutal scenes. There's literally still one that I can't quite look at the screen for, and then the other one is just kind of relentless. The sound design is palpable, so it makes what's going on screen so much worse. And then it stuck the landing with an ending that shook me to my core, which is just so rare for horror movies. They love dropping the ball in their conclusions. It uses all sorts of creative camera shots like tracking and tilts. The makeup work on the spirits is incredible. They look truly horrific and disfigured, as if the time spent in the afterlife is decaying them from beyond the grave. It is genuinely unsettling. Really solid performances out of the cast that feel genuine and real. Great logistical follow through for the established lore. Almost entirely practical, and it looks good. It is just truly firing on all cylinders. And my favorite part, it was directed by YouTubers.
It's going to be me, Cortland, and Bug. Whoa, what the is that?
It's like one of the first times I can say, yeah, look, YouTubers did this and not be a little bit embarrassed. And I genuinely believe that the type of content that they made on YouTube is exactly why this is just so well paced. Like, they know how to use those cuts. But speaking of YouTube video pacing, may I take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Raycon. My go-to when trying to drown out the voices of malicious spirits because they're the only earbuds that stay flush enough to my ear to sleep in. Lately, I've been using them to enjoy nicer summer weather with some audiobooks and during my workouts. And because they come with a variety of different gel tip sizes, you'll always be able to find the perfect fit to comfortably stay in your ears. And for those situations where I'm not specifically trying to immerse myself with the noise isolation features, like when I'm out for a walk, all I have to do is click down on the right earbud to easily flip over to awareness mode so I can be more aware of my surroundings. And seeing as they start at about half the price of other premium audio brands, offer a buy now, pay later option, and easy return guarantees, you can feel confident picking out the perfect pair for you. Whether you're looking for wireless earbuds, low latency gaming, headphones, a portable speaker, or all of the above, Raycon have you covered. So head on over to buyraycon.com/Jedi or click the link in the description down below to save 15% off your Raycon purchase. Talk to Me is an Australian horror film by YouTubers Racka Racka or Danny and Michael Philippou. Boys, I'd love to have a chat someday about the movie and your creative process, like if you're ever down. Danny also wrote the script along with Bill Hinsman based on a concept pitched to them by Daley Pearson, who is an executive producer on the children's show Bluey, so we love a fun fact. I guess originally this was supposed to be a lot more comedic, but Danny made the choice to just kind of take it down that more like serious and visceral direction, but there is still comedy infused in there where it makes sense, but the tone on this is just rock solid. Slate aside, I would just like to say that it is a fantastic year for first feature films. Like, we've got these two guys, we got Celine Song with Past Lives, we got Rain Allen Miller with Ryan Lane, just incredible year. And unlike so many of the other possession movies coming out this year, you'll actually care about the characters that bad things are happening to, which actually makes it enjoyable and worth watching. So if that sounds fun at all, please go support this movie. It's so fun and the Philippou brothers genuinely care. It's just a delight to hear them talk about this movie. I know they had turned down a larger budget from an American studio so they could maintain what they were looking for creatively, because they wanted to make the movie in Australia with the Australian cast that they already had in mind, and you just gotta respect that. Now, mid-disclaimer, because this is something that most people message me about when I talk about the movie. If you watch the trailer, you will see there's a dog. The dog is fine. Nothing happens to the dog. The dog is okay, though there is a dying kangaroo pretty early on in the movie, but it's obviously not like a real kangaroo, but there's your heads up. Again, if you haven't watched the trailer yet, just don't. Just go watch the movie. But now I'm going to start weaving through some of those plot specifics a little more before we dive into full spoilers, so we're kind of in like the light spoilers setup territory now. So we follow Mia, a teenage girl who's dealing with the 1-year anniversary of her mother's death, which seemed like it might have been at her own hand, but potentially also an accident. We're just told that she took too many sleeping pills, then couldn't get out of the room for help, so it's made it pretty hard for Mia to process what's happened. Which leads her to these possession parties that people at school seem to be having, kids with pitch black eyes freaking out in chairs as the people around them cheer on. And while her best friend Jade doesn't believe it's real, Mia's pretty excited to get in the hot seat.
It's my mom's Remembrance Day. I just want to forget about it. I'll do it.
So, how does it work? Because as mentioned, there are rules. You have to light a candle to open the door between the living and the dead, hold hands with the palm, and say, "Talk to me," which should instantly show you some kind of spirit across the table, their hand replacing the embalmed hand. There's also a couple theories around the hand mentioned in the movie. One is that it is the hand of a medium, and the other is that it's a Satanist, and his other hand is just out there somewhere. But things can only get so bad by just seeing a spirit, so you have to take it to that next level by saying, "I let you in," which allows the spirit to possess your body.
You don't have to look at it, just say it. Come on, say it!
I let you in.
And apparently it's such a thrill that they just regularly have parties where everybody's taking turns and they're fully hooked. Yes, this is very obviously an allegory for drug use, dilated pupils, younger teens doing it to fit in, the rush they feel, how hooked they get. But I did learn that it was specifically inspired by the directors being shown a video by a kid they pseudo-adopted growing up of him convulsing on the floor from a bad reaction to drugs.
And everyone was laughing at him and filming it on the floor.
So yeah, when I say it felt authentic, it really does. The spirits that pop up also seem to latch on to strong emotions you might be seeing, so pretty easy to see how things could go terribly wrong very fast, especially if anyone in the room's dealt with significant loss. But the way it'll really go wrong is if you don't follow the most important rule of them all.
Cannot go for more than 90 seconds. Am I clear?
What happens after 90 seconds?
Don't want to stay.
If you don't let go of the hand and blow out the candle within 90 seconds of the possession, the spirit will stick around a hell of a lot longer than you intended. And Mia hits 91 seconds. And at first it seems fine, she's fine. Jade's younger brother, who's basically her pseudo-brother, is more shook because the spirit seemed to hone in on him specifically.
They like you.
Later that night, a creepy little spirit hand kind of grazed his face, so ooh. So obviously they just continue to have these parties, and even though he was creeped out before, Riley begs to at least get a 50-second turn. Just like that younger brother that wants one puff, one beer. But things get a little rocky when the spirit that enters him seems to be Mia's mom. So she starts begging them to let it go on longer because she is desperate for answers surrounding the death, going well past the 90 seconds, and the consequences are immediate. Spoiler warning, I'm going to talk about those consequences. It's horrifying and abrupt, and the sound design is just doing so much work here, but it is relentless. He just starts bashing his head off the table. Also, if you have a thing with eyes, I would just close your eyes after he does the first head bash. Just as a little heads up there. It's the kind of thing that'll have you recoiling, maybe looking through shaded eyes. There's literally a scene where I just flat out shut my eyes, but it never hits the level of gratuitous. It's just visceral. So they get him disconnected into the hospital and he's just comatose. He's awake, but he's not talking. And the second he really gets a chance, he just starts bashing his head again until he ends up in a coma. And I honestly think that that's one of the things I found the most interesting about the way they told this possession story. So often possession stories turn humans into these supernatural killers, or just they're being used as objects to harm the people around them. But these things are just fucking mean and start destroying the host, which causes the most pain to the people around them. And I'm pretty sure it's because they can't just permanently take up residence and use his body and have fun with it. I think it's that, if he dies while they have a hold, his soul will be with them forever. So that's pretty easy motivation to have him hurt himself. So Mia, obviously feeling exceedingly guilty because she's the one that forced him to stay under, gets pretty hellbent on finding a solution to his possession. Because again, she sees this kid as her family. She spends so much time at their house after the death of her mom because she can't handle being around her dad, and she also can't handle being alone while he's at work, and she's literally his go-to to call for help if his actual sister isn't answering. Now, I'm not completely excusing her actions, and she makes a lot of little dumb choices, but in this scenario, if for a split second you thought that a loved one was talking to you, you might also have a really hard time shutting that down. Also, she's a teenager. They are dumb on a base level, and I say that as someone who used to be a dumb teenager and is currently still a fairly dumb adult. But things are a little trickier than just trying to help him with his possession, because she is also being tormented by the spirits of the dead. Gonna be moving into something that is a trailer spoiler, so if you haven't watched the trailer, just giving you a warning. She specifically starts being haunted by her mother and other spirits, which just kind of makes you wonder, is this actually her mother or just a malicious spirit playing a game? Because she hit 91 seconds, the spirits may not have a hold on her like they do Riley, but they're still there. All building into that amazing ending, which is just so damn brutal and not even a visceral, gory, or graphic in any shape of the word type of way. It's just what it commits to with its characters. It just left me speechless other than oh, holy shit. So before diving into full spoilers where I'll be explaining the ending and my thoughts on the progression of the movie going into that, I really just want to shout out Sophie Wilde's performance as Mia. She has to do so much here, from like juggling the party scenes to dealing with the still extremely present feelings she has towards her mother's death, the desire for connection, right into the version of her that's slowly falling apart trying to make things right. But again, all the characters in this are just like great and really authentic. Riley in particular as well is just this like sweet, slightly younger than them teen who you're totally fine having around because he's chill and not annoying. But it's absolutely that underlying innocence that facilitated all this going so wrong and why it hits so hard. But yeah, big fan. This is an easy 4 out of 5 stars for me with a 5 out of 5 concept and a 5 out of 5 ending. And that is going to bring us into spoilers. Big spoilers here because I want to talk about the goodies. So again, if any of that tickled your interest, please go check out this movie if it's around you in theaters. I really just want it to do well because it's the exact type of horror that I've been craving, and it's just nice to support, you know, smaller creators doing things with a smaller budget and like actually just making something really cool. Okay, so hopefully if you're still here, you've either seen the movie or you're the type of person who really needs to know some like specifics of what to expect in a horror movie before you'll watch it yourself, and I get that. I used to be that person, and now I get to be the person that provides that service to you. So let's dive in, and right away, the intro of this movie blows me away. It starts with this awesome tracking shot of someone weaving through a party trying to find his brother before having to bust down a door to get to him as the music blasts on. And instantly, the whole party is just waiting with their cell phone cameras and flashes waiting for some kind of spectacle, which is exactly what they get. This kid stabs his brother before ramming the knife into his own head, which just immediately sets the tone and lets us know exactly what's gonna happen when things go wrong. This pretty quickly moves into that scene with the dying kangaroo I mentioned, where Riley is just begging her to put it out of its misery, but she just can't do it, which is definitely some foreshadowing. But yeah, the progression of that intro I think is just really great because it really lets us know that this hand has wreaked havoc before it's hit them and will probably continue to do so long after it leaves them. Like all the different writing on it shows exactly how many places and people it's been through. I know that there was 5 hands for that movie. I think Danny has one of them. What I would do to have one of the other ones. And the other major aspect is even if they know what potential disaster could await them, the teenagers just wouldn't give a shit. That they'd still feel the need to try and experience this for themselves. Like we literally find out that the guy who now has the hand knows that the last group had someone completely snap and is still down to mess around with it. Just like drugs.
What did the hand feel like?
Felt amazing.
So we pretty much covered all the setup and how things get the way they are, but I do just really again want to stress that while Riley might be the one who's like fully possessed and immobile, Mia's the one being tormented. The spirits won't leave her alone. They're completely affecting her perception on reality to the point that she sees her mom as like the good, helpful, guiding spirit while there's malicious ones also trying to work their way in. And one of the scenes I really liked earlier on, like right after the head bashing scene, is when she kind of like begs Jade's boyfriend Daniel to stay over so she doesn't have to be alone, and like he's already passed out and she's just like slowly inching her arm forward so that it's like grazing his leg because she's just so desperate for any type of connection and attachment to another human being. Not saying it's not shitty because that's her best friend's boyfriend, but like it paints a picture of where she is and the trauma she's experienced. But that one moment that like really gave me such like a strong indication of her character and where she was at led into like probably the most funny that is also the most disturbing scene of the movie, where the spirit is just like sucking on Daniel's foot before it turns out that like she's the one doing it and just thought she was looking at a spirit doing it, and then like obviously he wakes up and thinks that she was just like chowing down on his toesies. Man, this guy's kind of having a real rough go with all this. Like first a dog makes out with him when he takes in a spirit, then he goes like super aggro, like rough times for Daniel. But all that makes it really clear that once Mia's alone and she had grabbed the hand from the party, that she'd be trying to specifically connect with her mom again. Why she'd literally allow this spirit to cuddle up with her in bed. She thinks it's really her mom and she's scared and alone. But was it ever actually her mom? I think there's like the minuscule slight chance that for like the first 50 seconds that Riley was under, it might have been her mom, but I feel like that's not likely, and that is definitely not the case going forward. I feel like Riley definitely recognized it as her mom because his initial reaction wasn't that like, oh my god, what the hell? It was this like somber, what the fuck, before he like looks at Mia, who then encourages him to continue. So you might think, well, it has to be the mom then if he recognized her, but we will learn that these things can change their appearance, conjure images, make people think things that are happening that aren't. So it would be so easy for them to make her think that she's looking at her mom. Again, the key for me is really that Mia was under for 91 seconds. That is literally all the spirits needed to take hold and start manipulating. Because once they're inside you to any capacity, they see parts of you, your vulnerabilities, your secrets. So it makes sense that they'd see this grief and confusion in Mia about her mom's death and use that to manipulate her. You know, it seems like these guys aren't necessarily having the best case scenario afterlife. It would make sense that they'd want to bring other people into their torture. Where this becomes an issue is that Spirit Mom starts putting Mia at odds with her dad in terms of the surrounding death. There's always been these slight plausible deniability that she didn't mean to take enough pills to die, like Mia tells everyone that it was an accident and clearly wants to believe that. And the spirit version essentially confirms that, saying that she'd never leave Mia on purpose. So when the dad ends up reading Mia the suicide note that he'd concealed from her, presumably because he thought that having plausible deniability would be better for her, Mia doesn't believe it's real. And why would she? She believes she's literally talking to her mom, who's told her the exact opposite. Which is when Spirit Mommy convinces her that that's not her real dad. That's one of the bad spirits lying to her. And this is another one of those real mean scenes. She believes she's being attacked by an evil spirit version of her dad. So when the real dad actually busts in the room to see why she's screaming, that's who she ends up stabbing with scissors. Fucking brutal. It's just this super horrific scene while you know the spirits are just like from the afterlife ripping the like baseline from Another One Bites the Dust. So yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like that spirit's her mom. Definitely just them taking advantage of a shit situation to manipulate people. But instead of realizing that she's been manipulated, this just takes hold of her even more. Up until now, she's tried getting the hand to reconnect to Riley because no one could remember if they blew out the candle after he started bashing his head, meaning that that specific doorway might not have ever closed properly. Trying to get where his spirit might be herself by entering another spirit. Like, no joke, this little dead girl pops up and is like, I let you in, and like, damn, what a flip up.
I let you in.
I didn't think that was a two-way connection. They're not in control of shit. Just like addiction. But it just shows her Riley's soul being perpetually tortured by these spirits, and it's all starting to distort her mind. Because it seems like they have the solution, because that brother from the beginning didn't die after being stabbed. And his main advice was to just stop using the hand. The longer you don't use it, the less power they have, and they eventually just go away. But again, this is an allegory for drug use. She just can't stop. She can't see logic. I saw some people saying she was dumb for using it over and over, but it makes perfect sense. Like this guy's brother, because of everything Mia's been shown, she doesn't believe that's the solution. She is positive that they currently have this permanent hold on Riley, not realizing that she's the one making them stronger. So after stabbing her dad, she seems to think that the only solution is killing Riley, that his soul will never be free as long as the spirits have access to his living body. Again, at this point, she's essentially snapped and believing everything that's fed to her. And this is where I urge everyone who actually plans to watch this movie but hasn't already to get off this video, because I need to share the ending and why I love it so much, but I really want you to experience it firsthand. Pun not intended. And I'm not trying to oversell it or overhype it. It is really just one of those things that once you realize what's happening, you're like, oh shit. So yeah, we are getting into it now. Your warning is there. Hopefully the way I describe it will still give you that, oh shit. So Mia kidnaps Riley from the hospital and starts rolling him towards oncoming traffic. I assume they just really needed a scenario that would also put her in harm's way, because like she's the one who ends up yeeted in front of a car. And the whole way there, the mom just egging her on while Jade is just desperately trying to reach them. She believed that she was going to be putting him out of his misery like she couldn't do with the kangaroo, something the spirits seemed to remind her of in the hospital. But it really seemed like she had this moment of clarity and stopped just before pushing him. So what happens next is a little bit more rocky. She either jumps in the street to prevent herself from hurting anyone else, or the spirit pushed her to at least secure one soul. Or Jade pushed her out of the way to get to Riley, but I am leaning towards the previous options. So at first you're gonna think, oh, she's alive because she stood up, but then it just hard cuts to her in the hospital hallway, seeing Riley rushed by on a stretcher before it shifts to him sitting up and talking with his family before she sees them all walking out of the hospital together. Because she's dead, and this is just a rapid progression of what she's missing in the living world, and it's like all this time that she's losing as a confused spirit. She notices she has no reflection now because she's not actually there, which I thought was neat because it was a little callback to a nightmare she mentioned having in the beginning of the movie. She then sees her dad walking down the hallway, who is probably definitely not actually her dad, before everything goes black and we just see this glowing light in the distance. And I just gotta say, I love that shot. I just love the way that it's like lightly illuminating the side of her head in the dark. It's so good. But it just leads to a hand that she reaches out to grab in the darkness. And just like that, she's across the table from a group of guys speaking a different language before the one holding the hand says, "I let you in." Because now she's one of those trapped spirits doomed to be carted out every now and again by people fucking around with the cursed hand. Oh my god, that ending, man. Man, I really hope to hell that if you were this far into the video, you've seen the movie, because like the shock I felt when that happened is just holy shit. And the way they do it is so brutal, because at the same time we're coming to that realization, she's coming to that realization. Like you can see it in her eyes when she realized what happened and how much she fucked up. And it feels even more brutal when you realize how much time must have passed, because the hand is no longer in Australia. It is somewhere else where they're speaking a different language. We already know this thing's made it around the world before. Man, all she had to do was stop and things would have been okay. And now her spirit's trapped forever. See what I mean by mean? It's mean, but I am so glad they committed to it, because I was like, oh my god. Fuck, man, I love this shit. I know that the dad was technically still alive when Jade found him. I know Mia sees him in the hallway at the end, but it doesn't seem like he's actually there. It almost just seems like this one last gut stab by the malicious spirits, like leading her into that horrible afterlife that's waiting for her. And it felt extra brutal because the entire movie, she's just ignoring all of his calls because she can't handle how he is emotionally, and now she can't get to him at all. But you kind of almost hope that he did end up dead, because you just imagine him waking up in the hospital, be told that his daughter is now dead, like on the year anniversary basically of the death of his wife. Man, that is so rough. At least Riley's okay. Or I guess as okay as you can be after like hitting your head that many times that brutally. But you know, that was Talk to Me. Just a really refreshing little indie horror movie that satisfied my horror needs, where so many things this year have just been falling short. But thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys are thinking in the comment section down below. If you've seen the movie, did you like it? What'd you think of it? I hope I didn't overhype it. Again, it's just like, you know, I saw it so long ago. I loved it. And I was just excited to share it, because that's what this is all about. Like, for everything that I like to have fun kind of dunking on, it's good to be able to share these things that I get genuinely excited about. But thank you all so much for watching. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later. Okay, I think we're done. Sick. Oh shit, the candle. Not today, spirits.